So there's a term called discover check, where you make a move and you just discover that you put your queen or your king in check or the put right. So you made a move and you had no idea you wasn't even trying to put him in check,
Hmm.
but because you end up in that spot, you discovered that hey, I put you in check. So discover check. That was a discover check move for us. We are a payment processing company. We is regulated by central banks, and we are a non-bank financial institution, meaning that we can provide banking services. So we have banking partners. So as a processor or a processing partner company, we process your payment. If someone who has a USD card, your money is in US dollars.
Podcast World, Cabin Studios. Welcome to another episode of The Value, the language of business for those of you seeking to build or invest in companies that are scalable and highly valuable. I'm your host, Kevin Valley, and today we have a popular returning guest in the form of Mr. Aldwyn Wayne, the CEO and founder of WiPay Caribbean. Now, WiPay has been making waves in Caribbean's fintech landscape ever since it's been launched back in 2014, 2015. Sorry, didn't have the right year. Is it 2014, 2015, Aldwyn?
No, it's 2017.
2016.
2016 is when we came on Ima, but 2017 was our first year, yeah.
All right, 2016, 2017. We would have recorded an episode number 47, back in, I believe it was November/December 2019, months before the global pandemic. And you know that in that episode, I would encourage everybody to go listen to episode 47. We got to know who Aldwyn Wayne is, his intro to tech, his intro to fintech, everything he did back in Point Fortin telecom space, and his whole journey. You know, that family legacy. You know, his dad is a big part of his business, life, his business endeavors, his support system. So we get to learn all of that in episode 47. Now things got a little intense. Things got a little intense. Aldwyn was in the cabin studios. I gave him something he doesn't usually drink, and things got a little intense. So you guys can check out that episode. But since then, Aldwyn, you would have. I remember in 2020, you would have mentioned that you were looking to launch a neobank. You've since launched Colour Bank for Caribbean diaspora. We're going to talk about that soon. You started doing WeFets, you know, so you started using payments to reach us in ways that we just live on a regular days. It's not just about going on the internet and paying for something, right? You are so in the Caribbean, we fet, we party, whatever it is. So we want to pay for maybe a doubles or a chicken, a gyro, whatever, you know. So you've been able to have small businesses have your WePay point of sale terminal so that people could pay for items at fets and whatnot. You've actually expanded over to West Africa. You have expanded to the motherland for many of us colored folks. So you've been able to launch WiPay Ghana. We want to talk about that. And I also know that you would have announced some years ago a Rebel Card and WeLoan and other things, you know. So you want to find out what's going on there. So, Aldwyn, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, Corin, I'm good. I'm glad we're doing this one remote because the last time we were in studio, you had me drinking what I thought was, warm milk, but it had some alcohol in it.
It has some alcohol.
I'm doing this one remote. So I'm gonna make sure we keep this one PG this time.
Okay.
You guys check out that last podcast. It's wild.
Okay.
How you doing, bro?
All right. So tell me, like, how are things going for you right now? How do you feel about everything
Good.
right now?
Yeah. So I mean, as you mentioned, we expanded into Ghana, into Nigeria later on this year, South America, into Colombia, the US, with our neobank. It's been a fun ride. 7 years, been a fun ride, and things are happening for us in the right time. I mean, you mentioned back in 2020 or 2019, we launched a Rebel Card, launched WeLoan in 2021, but now 4 years and 3 years later, respectively, we're now actually getting that card in market because of new partnerships. Right, that Rebel card has now morphed into Color card.
Okay. Okay.
Right, we loan. And at that time, Rebel was a physical card. Now Color is a physical and digital card. You could apply for it and get it instantly. That campaign should start on the first, where you can literally, jump on your phone, download an app, and get a Visa or a MasterCard that allows you to do online payments instantly.
Okay.
Once of course, you have your driver's license or passport or whatever form of ID you have. So, that was something that we had in the pipeline since 2019. But due to a number of circumstances, it's now being launched in 2024. And I'm gonna say this to our customer and our future customers. I think we are way better off now than we were back then in terms of having a product that provides the value that we wanted to provide back then. As a company, we've grown a lot. We've learned a number of things, especially in this space, meeting the customer at their point of need. That's some of the products that we put out there. It's not the generic run-of-the-mill product. It's something that may seem unconventional to traditional financial institutions, but you know what? That's what the market is looking for. The double smart is not looking for the same thing that guy that has a 5-story business is looking for. So we're looking at that audience, and that's our niche, and we're very proud of it.
Between then and now, we would have gone through a 2-year pandemic, and then 4 other years of quote unquote regular time. What do you know now that you didn't know then that makes it a better outcome?
For sure. So for us, the pandemic, moved us from a nice novelty idea, people going online, to now providing a product that is needed. Right. With the 2 years prior to the pandemic, we shout from the highest mountain to every business, hey, you should be online. At that point in time, that was something that, was more of a nice to have, a luxury item, because they're in the Caribbean, and, Trinidad is no exception. Businesses were conducted in person. And then, when the country locked down, it was noted or noticed that you had to have an ability to collect payments. And we went from being a nice novelty solution to now being the only solution, right? Because remember, at that point in time, banks were not signing some businesses up virtually. You still had to go into the bank. We were onboarding customers on a weekly basis by the hundreds, businesses. So the pandemic showed us being prepared, being ready, having a solution that although the market when we came in, so that's not something that is going to resonate right now. That's not something that we're ready for. When the pandemic hit, which we didn't plan for it, we were ready, and that allowed us to grow exponentially because we were prepared for a situation. So what I've learned is be ready, be prepared. Again, we had no clue the pandemic was going to hit, right? But we were ready. We believed in what the product was. We looked at markets that would develop, and understanding that we are developing, we were going to get there. We didn't have a timeline for when we're going to get there. We actually thought 5 years, but the pandemic pushed that up by 3. So
Okay.
post-pandemic, we are now in a position to be in the black as a startup, under 5 years, which was pretty much like the dream for any, entrepreneur or, FinTech startup.
So if I was to ask you a question, and I want you to answer this selfishly, would you say that the pandemic, as horrible as it was for the world, would you say that was good for business?
So selfishly, and I could give you a little inside joke at WePay, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times when something happens and we can't explain it, we see the WePay gods. Like the WePay gods got our back. And, so we joke around and said, hey, listen, the WePay gods sent the pandemic. So selfishly, yes, unfortunately, it was terrible, for us, not only in Trinidad, but, around the world, a lot of people lost their life, in this epidemic / pandemic. But personally, it helped elevate the thinking, especially in developing nations, that, is not as difficult as you think it is to get a society, to accept payments online, to
Mhm.
accept digital payments, and selfishly, as you said, for us, we were prepared, to deliver that service or that solution, not only from a personal level or business level, but from a government level. You would have known, ends in Jamaica, Grenada, Guyana. We provided governments with a number of solutions that allowed, semblance of, society to resemble what it had, you know, prior to the pandemic, during the pandemic as well.
I was in this conference last week. It's put on by these guys, Caribbean Dragons. Big up, we got Roll, Mark, and Sean. Is it? I can't remember the other guy's name, but big up to Roll and Mark on that. And there was a presentation on innovation by this innovation professional. He's ISO certified and very qualified in terms of innovation management. His name is Emerson John Charles. And in his presentation, he was actually praising you for your innovative work at WiPay and everything you guys have done and been able to accomplish over the past 8 years since you've been around. Now, from what I see, though, and from what I know, innovation can be a real tumultuous journey. Now, I note that in the tail end of the pandemic, you guys actually ended up relocating to, I guess, a mix of Florida and Jamaica, but more so being headquartered in Jamaica. So, can you talk about that journey and what spurred that?
So, if anyone knows me, I'm a big Elon Musk fan, right? I mean, I pretty much, do all, my endeavors kind of based around his philosophy. And you talked about entrepreneurship, and he runs, one of the largest AI companies in Tesla. Most people think Tesla is about cars,
Nope.
but it's about data gathering and AI. He's mapping the world, right? The highways. He runs the largest private space company in SpaceX. He has, one of the biggest digital platforms. He has Neuralink, and he has, you know, trillions of dollars in valuation. And he he was asked, what would he tell, to any aspiring entrepreneur, about, getting into business, starting their business, and running a company. And he said to them, and he could do this, don't do it. You have to be borderline crazy to do it because it's problems after problems. It's constant failure. It's not for the regular. Your ability to accept that, you know, this thing is going to be a failure on top of a failure, but then one success, and then a failure is going to come right after it, and then four more failures, and then one success is pretty much, the life of any entrepreneur, right? And he would recommend, I mean, you see all the great stuff that the media puts out there, but this is his answer to this young kid who was thinking about, hey, he want to start up, he want to be like him. And I can tell you, for us, you know, our ability to look at failure and say, okay, this is a stepping stone. We're not being judged or we're not judging ourselves by it, has pretty much allowed us to not only exist but grow in an environment that, you know, I can tell you from all the big companies, the multinational sellers, there's no fintech that's growing in the Caribbean. How are you guys doing it? And it's that same thing that Elon Musk talked about. We expect failure. We expect, hey, things are not going to go our way, but we're not going to hang our head and say, hey, this was or is the reason why it's not working. This is a reason why it can't work, but we'll have to figure out a reason around it. So in 2020, things were well at the beginning
Mhm.
because everyone was going online, but we were limited in our growth potential, whether it be the understanding of the space by, you know, the regulatory bodies or understanding the space by, you know, government organizations. We were limited, right? And again, this is not something that I'm attacking anyone.
Of course.
This is just the products that we are building doesn't naturally come up from this region. So you don't naturally have the regulations or the framework to manage or understand it, right? So, you would, be lumped into, groups of services that you don't provide, but you're lumped into that group because that's what they understand.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, that was one of the, you know, failures that we just can live with. We don't want to sit here and say, okay, you know what?
But that's not your
Because
failure.
that's not my failure. So let's go somewhere else that they get it.
Okay.
And that's what that was. Again, we are still very much here in Trinidad. I'm here in Trinidad. We do great business in Trinidad. But for the things that we wanted to do that was outside of the comfort zone of understanding at this point is the reason why we had to pivot a bit in terms of developing products in markets that have the framework in place to help us grow.
Okay.
Right? We have perfected it in some of those markets, and now we're bringing it back home and having those conversations with the relative stakeholders so that they can now see how they can benefit from it within, regulatory and, business framework.
Especially, I guess, especially hot during the pandemic, but I would say FinTech, it's probably cooling down a little bit now, but in the past few years, I would say FinTech entrepreneurship was really getting really, really hot over the past few years. I mean, a lot of folks would start some of their own FinTech in one way or the other. Maybe they want to start or maybe a neobank, like what you're doing with Colour Bank, or maybe they want to start some other sort of FinTech business. But yeah, the regulatory hurdles are always there because you're innovating against a regulatory system that was set up from however many years ago for an older system, right? And the regulation can't always keep up with the innovation. So how do you suggest, and how, well, I mean, you moved to another market. You moved your home country, your home base, your headquarters, to another market. Well, how would you advise other folks setting up fintechs in one way or the other to avoid the regulators?
Avoiding the regulations, I think, is a strong statement.
Not avoid.
I would say avoid.
To to mitigate. Yes.
Yeah. So again, where we launched our products was and is in markets that have the framework in place, right? Instead of launching a product that we have to now explain to a regulator that this is outside the scope of the guidelines that you provide with your regulations, they're not going to get that, right? They're like, oh, no, well, build your product to suit our guidelines because that's what we understand.
Right.
So it's on you to understand, hey, what market do I launch my product in where the framework is already set up? So I have the easiest path to launching something and seeing if this is something that can work. Versus you're sitting here spending months and months trying to have a regulator understand it, and it may not even work. Right? So find that market, launch your MVP, see if it works, get it working. Now use that framework to get your local regulator to understand, hey, this is what I did here. This is what I want to do here. And these are the guidelines that help me stay in check so that the people in that market was protected from a financial and a fiduciary point of view, which is the whole goal of the regulator. And that's what we did.
So what do you think about the approach of ask for forgiveness versus asking for permission if the regulators aren't ready or up to it? Is that a dangerous game?
It's a fine line. I would say, 5 years ago, that was easier to do.
Okay.
But the regulators are catching up and understanding different technologies out there. So they do have enough of a language within, their framework that allows you or allows them to say, hey, no, this is outside of what we are granting you permission to. But 5 years ago, when the language was a bit more simple, yeah. 6 years ago, yeah.
Okay. So
Good luck to those early movers.
All right. So, how would you say that process was moving to Jamaica then? Would you say it was easy? Would you say it was difficult? Because you're uprooting your family and everything too, right? So, how would you say that process was?
All right. So just to be clear, we moved to Miami,
Right.
the company's office. While we moved to Jamaica, yes, they had a framework that was ready. They had a number of mobile wallets since 2015.
Mm,
They were moving to, yeah, they had a bunch of it, from MyCash to Digicel
yes.
to a bunch of this is 2015. So they had a framework in place, right? And they actually were moving to CBDCs. So they had a lot of groundwork already completed. So it was easy for us to bring our solution, have those conversations with the regulators, with the banks, and get into market, right? But I would say less so than the red tape. It was just the opportunity, right? It was the opportunity that was there. Jamaica is twice the size of Trinidad. And if you understand our business model, it's based on velocity and volume. More people means more customers mean more transactions. It was just a bigger opportunity. And we moved from Jamaica into Colombia, and then we moved from Colombia into Ghana, which is 45 million people. So,
Well, we're not going to
we
skip
just,
past that Colombia move. We're not going to skip past that, all right? Because we're both good friends with Kyle Maloney. I know Kyle Maloney. He says that Medellin is his favorite city in the world. All right. I was quite surprised to see. Not only cool that you visit there. All right, cool. You go there live, whatever. Colombia is great. All right. That you set up a business there? What? How did that happen?
all right. So, yeah, I was at a conference in Miami, a MasterCard conference, and I met this gentleman who was the owner of a fintech company, all right, called Finzi, and he was looking for investors. And I'm like, okay, cool. You know, I'm never shying away from a good investment. The numbers made sense, and I've decided, listen, we're not going to set up shop, but we could own a payment company similar to ours. I mean, his market was the Gen Z market, slightly younger,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it was a good deal. So we bought into the company, and then when we bought into the company, they had all the rails that WePay would have needed to launch into WePay. They had all the banking rails, they had the card issuance, the acquiring. But again, their market was for that Gen Z. I'm like, okay, here what? So I bought into the company. Great, that's fine. Let's enter into a partnership. I'm gonna hire a couple of your staff, and I want to launch WePay, but I'll use the rails that you already have with your banking partners.
Okay.
So we got the ability to launch in that country. But how do you launch in a country with 40 million people and about 20 fintechs that's already, on their way to being a unicorn? When we got to Colombia the first time, we realized that Colombia has a huge Afro population. It's about 12% of the population. And most of the solution were, built just for, the general population, the Anglo, population. So we saw the Afro Colombian as our niche, and we launched Color, pun intended, for Afro Colombians. And we were featured on Forbes. We met with the ambassador in DC because he's actually Afro Colombian,
Okay.
the Colombian American ambassador. And he loved what we were doing because this is something that's specific to an ethnic group or a group that's being underserved and undervalued. And they provide a lot to the Colombian economy and to the society as a whole. So they see us as, an enabler for financial inclusion for a segment of their population,
Mm-hmm.
which just seems to be disenfranchised when it comes to the financial system. So, again, the opportunity was there, as I mentioned with COVID, in investing in this Colombian company. And then we got down there, we saw a niche market that we could build off of. And that's 12 million people that I'm talking about in that Afro community. So, I
Okay.
mean, again, it's not only for that community, but that's where we'll start. Yeah.
All right. So Colour Bank is a neobank. You want to explain to the audience? Not everybody knows what a neobank is. I remember I sat in your office and you sat down with a diagram and you explained it to me what what a neobank is some years ago. All right, so can you just explain the concept of a neobank and then how Colour Bank came to be and why incorporation in Florida and how you
Sure.
and how it works?
So think of a bank that has a charter, a license to operate as a bank.
Mm-hmm.
So they're regulated by their central bank or the central regulatory body, right? And they will put products in market, you know, debit cards, credit cards, bank accounts, and it will happen through their bank location. Think of a neobank as a location of that same bank, but it exists on an app. So I don't need to walk with this manila folder of my proof of address, my driver's license. I can literally just take a picture of those things on my phone, and with AI and automation, we can now check, validate, use compliance companies to ensure that you fit all the fit and proper checks, and then we issue you a bank account and a debit card. Comes to you in the mail. You get a bank account. You can do the same things your bank account could do, but you never visited a physical location. That's pretty much what a neobank is. It allows you just to use your phone and open a bank account and do banking transactions from your mobile device.
So that's like,
but
go ahead.
A point to note, you still have a real bank behind
you. Okay.
Because we don't have a banking charter, right? So that bank that issues the account, they would give us the guidelines for what we need to collect from a KYC and AML point of view. Once we meet those checks, it seems instant to the customer, but we run all those checks in the background before we issue you that account. And if you fall out of compliance at any time, your account will be suspended. We issue you a debit card, so you can use your funds on a debit card to make in-store purchases or online purchases. But again, you never visited a bank. You did all that from home.
And you're making your quote unquote deposits. You're making that. How are you making your deposits?
Through our network. So like in Colombia, we're partnered with like the lotto companies. We're partnered with gas stations. We have like over like 15,000 locations across Colombia. You just walk in. Think of it, you walk into a Massey and you have like $500. You just got paid as someone that, cuts grass. You walk into Massey, you load that on their card, and now that money's on your card. That's your bank account. So you don't have to walk around with cash.
Okay, so a neobank would be something like a Novo or Revolut in the States, would you say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Revolut, Chime. Yeah. There's a neobank, so.
Okay, yeah. I mean, another trend that's becoming quite popular is a lot of folks from outside of the U.S. being able to set up businesses in the U.S. and also get bank accounts in the U.S. without even setting foot there, which is great. You know what I mean? All right. Okay, so now I know for a lot of fintechs, especially in the Caribbean region, the impetus behind starting a business is financial inclusion. Right, there's too many people underbanked or whatnot. But I think there's another sub-reason, and I don't know if there's a sub-reason for you or a bigger reason for you, but another sub-reason is that access to foreign exchange, access to hard currency, especially in Trinidad, and I think Barbados has this issue to a lesser extent, and then some other islands would have it to even lesser extent. But it's still an overall issue. Would you say that was also part of the thinking, part of the problem you wanted to solve with WiPay?
You play chess?
Huh? I used to. My brother taught me when I was a very small child, but I haven't played since a teenager. Why you ask that?
So there's a term called discover check.
Okay.
Where you make a move and you just discover that you put your queen or your king in check right? So you made a move and you had no idea you wasn't even trying to put him in check. Mm-hmm. But because you end up in that spot, you discovered that, hey, I put you in check. So discover check.
Okay.
Right? That was a discover check move for us, right? We are a payment processing company. WePay is regulated by central banks, and we are a non-bank financial institution,
Right.
meaning that we can provide banking services. So we have banking partners. So as a processor or a processing partner company, we process your payment. If someone who has a USD card, your money is in US dollars. So we now say to you, Kevin, hey, you can use our processing, but ask your bank to open a US dollar account for you. So when we process that money, we can send it straight to you in USD versus sending it to a bank who would hold the US and give you the TT equivalent.
Right.
And that's the Discover check. That's the value that we provide. Now, your bank still has to open a USD account for you. We don't hold money. So when we process a card from Bank of America doesn't have TT dollars. So you send an invoice to someone in the US and they use their US card. That money, if you have a US account and you use WePay, you get into the US balance. And that's something that we just discovered is tremendous value because there's a lot of businesses that have payments that's not originated out of Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay.
And all those payments, any transaction that's not originated from a TT card, you have to put the possibility of getting in US dollars if you have a US dollar bank account, which is the magic that we just discovered that we possess. Discover check.
I mean, is it all right? I just want to play with this a little bit. So, is it a Discover check, or is it where there's a little gap, a loophole in the system, and where the system hasn't caught up with you yet? Now, in our last conversation in 2019, I actually remember this. I did not listen to this conversation today, but I remember sitting on my couch over there, and you told me this, right? Because I had this PayPal account, and I had about, I don't know, 50 odd US trapped in that account. I could not get it to my TT credit card at the time, and you said, hey, well, that's because you're not supposed to use it that way. And the system caught up with you. Right. But since then, I've been able to, I opened a Bank of America account in 2019, and I was able to use my TT credit card to send funds to my Bank of America account. And when I got
two different things. So when you open a PayPal account as a Trini, right?
Yeah.
You supposed to accept payments in Trini.
Right.
PayPal doesn't have a license to accept payments in Trinidad. That's called cross-border acquiring.
Okay. Right.
So when you acquire a transaction, it has to be settled in a US account because PayPal or whatever country that they have set up to acquire that transaction has to settle that money in the country that they acquired it in. Right. So I can't acquire a Jamaican transaction but then settle it in Trinidad, if that makes sense.
Right.
The acquirer or the acquiring bank have to settle the transaction in that same country.
Okay.
Otherwise, they'll be guilty of doing something called cross-border settlement or cross-border acquiring. So back then, that's your issue then. Now, you have the ability to open a Bank of America account. Where does that account sit?
All right, so here's what I did. I have multiple email addresses. I opened one PayPal account, with my TT credit card, and I have another PayPal account with my US Bank of America account. So I made payments from my TT, and no, they don't come and look for me. Anyway, so I made a payment from my TT credit card to my US Bank of America. I sent myself a bill or whatever it is. And yeah, I was able to send myself thousands of US dollars in a country where I have a US account. I have a Canadian account also. But if I'm traveling, you can only get 200 US.
So
no matter how much I have.
You're acquiring a transaction in the US. You're talking about you're making the payment from your TT card. Which you can make a payment onto Amazon, Netflix, none of those things are Trinidad. Right. Your bank is going to pay the US based on your US availability.
Right.
But once the acquiring account is in the US and you're using PayPal US or PayPal Canada, you're going to be fine.
Right.
Now I can tell you this, since then, there's something called Visa Direct, which we are now benefiting from, where you can now send a PayPal payment to a Visa debit or credit card to anywhere in the world. which is not cross-border acquiring because it was acquired and settled in the US into PayPal, but then you could use Visa Direct to send it to a Color card or a JMB card or any Visa card,
Okay.
right? Because PayPal has Visa Direct, which is a new development over the last year and a half compared to when we were talking, 4 years ago.
Okay.
But yeah, it's always evolving. At that point in time, cross-border acquiring was a big issue. Still is, but now you have Visa Direct. In your situation, once you're making payment to Uncle Sam, they're fine with it.
Oh, okay. Once I see that, okay, no problem. Yeah, Uncle Sam love money. Anyway,
Just don't go over 9999. Then FinTech will be in this case.
all right. So as you mentioned, evolution. Let's talk about Haiti, right? So you opened business in Haiti. What's put at it? Was that another sort of investment / acquisition, or was that intentional?
That's 100%.
That was what, sorry?
100% WiPay, 100% owned by us.
Okay.
We actually opened in a city called Cap Haitian.
Ah.
Cap Haiti, Cap Haitian.
Cap Haitian, yeah.
But we have since paused operation because of the that outbreak, that violence, that rioting that's taking place.
Mm-hmm.
So that business was supposed to focus on remittance, and we couldn't grow that business in the way that we wanted because we couldn't even fly. I can't even fly to Haiti.
What's the fintech landscape like in Haiti? I only know of one player over there who actually plan to interview very soon. I think that's Cellpay, but I think they're also in the remittance space. But Digicel is over there, but I don't know if they were there in a fintech form.
There's like three main companies in Haiti.
Okay.
It's Moncash, which is Digicel, and then there's the two other cell phone companies, one owned by the state and one owned by this family, and they have their local payouts. Can't remember the name of it.
Okay.
And those are the three fintechs that's operating, which is all run by telecoms. But I can tell you, Haiti, over the last year and a half, if you're following the turmoil that's taking place out there, the cities is run by gangs right now. So it's very difficult to conduct business in Haiti at this point in time. You fly in, and once you are not Haitian, you're liable to be under threat. So there's a lot of things that at this point in time, caused us to pause operations in Haiti. But again, it's a numbers game. And Haiti and DR, we are now opening a DR office. I think I shared that with you.
Good job.
Yeah.
Good job. I know that's been on your plate. That's good job.
Jim B, who's our partner in Jamaica and in Trinidad, they have a DR office. So one of our strengths in our partnership is to collab in every country that we're in or they're in. And DR is one of their large operations. And, we extending into Dominican Republic.
Very nice, and because DR got a big population as well.
About 11 million.
Right, and it's a growing economy, thriving middle class.
I was there last month, and between Santo Domingo, Punta Cana, Santiago, that country is under. It doesn't look like a developing country.
So let's talk about Ghana. How did that happen? And I especially want to spend a little bit of time on this because I understand that the African market is a little different, right? It's really difficult to get proper business done, especially in that kind of expansive sort of method, without having partners on the ground that you really know and trust. So how were you able to get that in order? So
in this fintech space, I think you probably saw you spend half of the year in conferences, right? And I was a keynote speaker at the Africa DeFi conference or summit in 2022. And it was at Mozambique in Ghana. And a local company that was there who was trying to get started up, like a 5-man show, he said, listen, We know you're partners with Republic Bank because that's everywhere. Republic Bank just bought over one of the biggest banks in Ghana.
Mm-hmm.
We love you guys from Trinidad, blah, blah, blah. And that conversation evolved into we would happily, be brought up by you and run WePay Ghana for you. And that's pretty much how that happened. To be honest, we don't speak the language. Africa was something on, the roadmap probably 4 or 5 years down the road. But just like Colombia, if we could buy into an existing entity that pretty much have all the rails and, they need financing, they had the right team and skill set to run this business. We just felt it as an easy decision. Colombia and Ghana was not on the table. Like 6 months before, or literally going into Accra, they in 2022, it wasn't on the table. I went there to give a keynote speech about connecting the Caribbean to Africa. I left with a company.
Sometimes it go like that.
It happens like that most of the times.
Okay, but how has the integration been, especially culturally?
I mean, surprisingly, it's very similar to the Caribbean. I mean, it's like damn near identical.
So
right? The foods. I mean, besides the food, everything is they stew chicken. They have. I mean, they are a bit nicer. Like they're very humble, church faring people. They don't like the loud bossiness.
Yeah.
But outside of that, they're very similar to us. The culture is the same. I mean, I guess we come from there, so I guess our culture is the same. With a little twist.
Mm-hmm.
Food is the same. Temperature is the same. Weather is the same. It was very easy to get acclimated to that society in Ghana. Went there for 5 days. I stayed for 5 weeks.
Okay. Wow, 5 weeks?
Yeah, about a month.
Wow.
A month
Okay.
and something.
Okay.
Yeah.
But in terms of doing business,
Oh yeah, I mean, they were built on not having those barriers because they just didn't have it, right? So let me walk you back 24 years ago.
mm-hmm.
We were now getting into credit and debit cards. Banks were now putting these systems in place. Central banks were now regulating these things. They didn't have that. So they have to build their own ecosystem, which was based around the most ubiquitous thing they have, which was the cell phone. And it wasn't even a smartphone, it was those Me Too.
Mm-hmm.
So they started now building infrastructure and regulations around what they have, which was the mobile devices. So while we were getting credit card and debit cards up and running, they were getting mobile payments up and running, M-Pesa, so forth. So by the time 2008, 2009, that whole mobile payment ecosystem with regulations in place. This is why everybody's, we got to imitate what's taking place in Kenya and in Nigeria, because they leapfrogged that whole banking rails bit with Visa and MasterCard, ACH, and so forth. They were all existing on their cell phones. So now that we're bringing technology like this there, that ecosystem already have all the regulations and framework in place to bring this in a sandbox environment. You could get in there within a couple of weeks in a sandbox, and the regulators could tell you, we like it, we don't like it, you change this. That's a real sandbox over there because they have built it over the last 20 years compared to us where, we built that banking infrastructure first, and now you're trying to get into that, phone and, technology infrastructure or framework, and we're now trying to catch up from a regulatory standpoint. Okay. So over there, it's a lot easier to put products in the market.
Okay, nice. And I mean, I really applaud that, and I look forward to seeing some more Caribbean businesses integrate with West Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa and everything. I mean, I know Afrexim Bank and Barbados have been doing a lot of work in that space, in the trade and investment space. But yeah, I look forward to seeing more of that, and I would love to also be a part of that in the future. But more of that to come. Acquisitions. So you guys recently acquired travel company, you've made some other acquisitions since then. You guys are in acquisitive mode, or are you still in acquisitive mode, or you were in a acquisitive mode and now you're calming down? What's happening?
So I just mentioned to you, Ghana and Colombia was all acquisitions.
Right.
So once the deal is right, once the deal makes sense, yeah. So, you mentioned Travel L. I think that was in the papers. That's essentially, you know, because we have the ability to make payments online for people who can't make payments online. We wanted to be able, for the Caribbean, people who may not have USD availability, people who may not have credit cards, debit cards, whatever, allow them to travel, allow them to, buy a plane ticket, or someone like yourself who may have 7 credit cards. You pretty much might prefer to buy your plane ticket and your hotel room with your Links card, so you save that USD balance. So we saw this opportunity. But trying to partner with Expedia, one of those companies, there wasn't something that we were, having headways on. They weren't going to put WePay on their checkout box.
Right.
And what we found out is most of these travel companies, they buy these hotel rooms from a bulk trader. Expedia buys from a bulk trader. Travelocity buys from a bulk trader. So we found this company that have that arrangement with a bulk trader. So instead of trying to now have this relationship with the bulk trader, just buy the company, and now we have the ability to sell you tickets at the same price or even cheaper than Expedia. It's a lot cheaper, right? We're going to launch it next week when we launch the new version of Colour. But now, and it's going to be called We Travel.
I like it.
All right.
Okay.
Right. You can check it out. WeTravel.app. Right. That's a place you can check it out. But it's going to be integrated within the app, so you don't even need to go to that URL. But essentially now, that acquisition gives us the ability to help provide value to the Caribbean in terms of travel and hotels with your local currency, and still at a better price than Expedia, because we're buying from the same wholesaler. But instead of saying we want to make 5% or 4% profit, we'll take 3% because we're here to provide a solution that brings value to our segment, which is that unbanked, underbanked, up and coming. So, it was costly, but we believe in the long run, as a society in the Caribbean, we're all going to benefit from it. So that's one we're pretty proud of, because it was actually a bidding war.
It was a bidding war
at that point.
Okay, yeah, I can imagine. And I know
you
also acquired a microfinance company.
Yeah. So I think you're talking about in Jamaica. We acquired equity shares in a microfinance company that would allow us to do a couple of things well in Jamaica. Money Masters. It would allow us to do. They have a Cambio license. They have investment license. They have loans, microloans. So in Jamaica, within our Colour app, we are very excited that acquisition or investment, I should say, that we'll now be able to bring these things to our customers right within the app. Getting a loan, being able to invest in the stock market, being able to convert your Jamaican dollars into USD, because that's a floating market over there, and buying and selling currency, and that arbitrage is big business. The average man in the street could get involved with it because we now will integrate Money Master's solution within our app. So yeah, again, acquisition that would drive, a new revenue stream within the business.
How do you price these? And I asked this question when I was interviewing Nicholas Reese from Canoe just some weeks ago. How do you price your acquisition? How do you determine the valuation at which you're willing to pay for these acquisitions?
So I could give you the nice technical jargon where we look at the numbers, right? We look at the revenue, we put a multiplier to it, understand the market growth, and say, okay, based on what we project or what you project to earn, we'll do a percentage of that. But I can tell you, for me, really and truly, it's how do I see this particular business adding value to our overall ecosystem. So sometimes I may spend more than I should, which I believe we did with the travel company. But I believe Yeah, we bought that one 100%. We left nothing on the table.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, but I understand what the value of travel is. I travel like every week, and I'm saying, listen, you know what? When I look at our expense or travel expense, I could cut back 10, 15%. So if I could do that across the board, not only from our B2C solution, which is what we want to provide to customers, but a lot of our B2B companies, we can now offer them, services where, we save them not only on Forex, but on the cost of their travel, the cost of their staff and their team and their management team, their travel, not only with air travel, but accommodations as well. There's a lot of things. World Cup coming next year in the US, 2026. Sorry. I mean, a lot of people want to go to the US to watch, the FIFA World Cup.
Right.
We have Olympics coming up after that. There are people who travel from the US to the Caribbean. We are a tourist destination. So it's, for an American company, and they're looking at sales of travel around the world. But for a Caribbean company looking at this destination locations in the Caribbean, it could be beneficial. So for me, I looked at the numbers. I'm like, okay, your model might be wrong. I'm gonna stick with the niche in the Caribbean. I run those numbers, and for me, that made a lot of sense comparing to what your numbers are when you're trying to compete against Expedia on a global scale. Of course, you're not going to win. You don't have that marketing reach. But me in the Caribbean, my built-in customer base and our local branding, I think we could be the number one travel app for this region and not only benefit from the revenue from, travel sales and hotel sales, but be in the processor as WePay on the back end. So we get two bites of the cherry. And, my decisions where, investment is concerned, I have my financial team that would evaluate, hey, this is a good deal or a bad deal. I'm going back to that Travel deal because they said, "Hey, let's cap it here." I'm like, "Nah, I'm gonna spend a little bit more because I want to win." And that decision wasn't based just on the numbers. It's based on what I believe the market is going to trend into. Again, I follow a lot of Elon Musk philosophies, and sometimes it's a bit unorthodox.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, that's how you get the unorthodox type of results, right? So what do you, and I think that dovetails nicely into this next question I wanted to ask you, as you were just describing all of that. What do you think it is that separates you from your peers / competitors in the Caribbean region? So I mean, you have big players in Bahamas, you have big players in Bermuda, big players in St. Lucia, St. Vincent, other islands in Eastern Caribbean, and other in Haiti and whatnot. What do you think separates you from your peers? And also, there's other folks that are competing in the North American market, because you're also there in some ways, and even across the African continent.
So I'll tell you this: understanding what the customer point of need is, which is, I think, our biggest advantage, right? What we sell in Ghana is completely different from what we sell in Colombia. What we sell in Colombia is completely different from what we sell in the US. What we sell in Trinidad is probably about 50% different from what we sell in Jamaica, and so forth. And I can give you an example. Our biggest focus in Ghana is something called Christian Pay, where you go to church and you miss church on a Sunday and you still want to pay your tithes and offering. We aggregate all the mobile payments. There's MomoPay, ZPay, all these different payments, right? We don't want you to use WePay. We're just an aggregator. So when you see all the different options, you pay into us as a payment facilitator, and then we settle to the churches. That's not what we do in Trinidad. In Trinidad, our biggest business is B2B. We have businesses who use WePay for online processing, credit card processing, and so forth. In Jamaica, it's B2C. In Colombia, it's the Afro market. In the USA, it's the diaspora market. We're not competing on global levels with global players. We are competing in niche markets, in those big markets, and what is needed in the small market. Colour is going to be our first B2C product in Trinidad. Afterwards, 6 years, we will always B2B. But B2C was something that we didn't think we could penetrate. But then when you look at our competitors who came and left, they try to put a product in market where they weren't fully aware of what the C wanted, right? That consumer market, you have to actually provide value, right? I can't come to the doublesman in the corner and say, hey, download my app, and have someone download my app for you to receive a payment. That's too much work.
Yeah.
Give me something that someone comes up, I don't have to say anything, and they have something in their pocket that they can pay me with. You know what everyone has in their pocket? A debit, credit, or links card. So if I give the doublesman something that could accept a debit, credit, or links card, I'm meeting him at his point of understanding. And that's what we're different. We're not here selling products. We're here understanding a problem and solving it with a solution. And that's our competitive advantage. And I learned that at college. I think that's the biggest difference. We're not here selling any one thing. We don't want to do a mobile app. We never had a mobile app. Think about that. WiPay never had a mobile app. Colour is going to be our first mobile app in Trinidad. WiPay was an online payment platform, like how PayPal was.
Interesting.
But that's what the market needed at that point in time.
Interesting.
And I think that's our biggest difference.
Interestingly enough, I guess maybe I didn't look deep enough, and I looked fairly deep. But I did not notice that you're doing B2C in Jamaica versus B2B in Trinidad. I didn't know that. I didn't notice that there were differences in your product offering.
So it's the same product, but what we focus on selling is different aspects. So we sell in Jamaica where you go in, you have a QR code that I can scan. Sorry.
Going is my brother.
It's a China.
Is he China?
Right?
Okay.
Yeah,
it's a China. Okay, no problems.
China, I'm a little bit of scotch in it. You gave me scotch the last time, right? Yeah, so their thing is, listen, they have a lot of entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, or whatever Kevin Wills call them. Digipreneurs, right? Gig economy workers, and they just want to get paid from these tourists that come off the boat, come off the plane, that's here to see Jamaica for a day and a half, and they have their credit cards, and you have the ability to scan a QR code. What pops up on the tourist's phone is something that he can enter his credit card on his phone. That's B2C. He's a consumer.
Yes.
And, we don't have that tourism market as they do. So if we went across there trying to sell businesses like we do here, we would have not have the success that we have. So, we're a chameleon when it comes to products. Our product would match whatever environment or whatever, value that is needed in that community or that country, if that makes sense. And that's, I think, what separates us.
So
that's our secret.
Where did that intimate market knowledge come from? Did you do the research yourself, or is it that you had your people across there, you had Keepway, and they would say, no, bro, this is not going to work like that over here? Like, how do you go ahead and do that market research?
Nah, I mean, I can tell you from 2015 with, Moncash and Connect, that's Calvin Hewitt, I was across that. I mean, when you see WePay launch, that's 5 years of being the guy in the space. I could call every one of the players, and I can tell you what worked and what didn't work. Not from, second hand or third hand. I was either working with them as a technology guy. I'm a Georgia Tech grad. I've, built a lot of stuff. So it was very easy for them to reach out and get me over there. And I learned from their experiences.
Okay, good.
So we're built on the back of a lot of, entrepreneurial, Caribbean folk, right? This is not just Aldwyn taught it up. We looked, learned, and saw what worked and what didn't work, and we decided, let's just make sure we do what did work and see how it goes.
So what's this Grenada Bacchanal now? What's this Grenada Bacchanal? Well, so in 1 minute, Grenada is saying that they're kicking out WiPay, and in the next minute, it's hugs and kisses, we together for the next 5 years. What's happening with Grenada?
We didn't have no Bacchanal. I was actually supposed to be there this week, I'm invited to Emancipation next week and
Okay.
then Carnival the following week.
All right.
But I have kids in Miami that I need to send back to school, so I'm going to miss all.
Oh, shucks.
But, we have a extended 5-year contract signed this week,
Congrats.
last week,
Okay.
to provide the government of Grenada 5 more years of WePay services. But Trinidad is a place of Bacchanal, and I love it. So what happened is, WePay, we provide, as I mentioned, we're regulated by central banks. The Eastern Caribbean is regulated by the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. However, our banking partner is regulated by central banks, right?
Mhm.
And vis-a-vis us. But in each country, you have, in those Eastern Caribbean islands, those local regulatory bodies that, manage like the over-counter stores. So not financial institutions, but think your corner store, your mom and pop store that has a Western Union payout. They can be regulated by the central bank. So they have this little body, shouldn't use the word little like that, but they have this body, 2-3 man show, that kind of manages these shops to make sure, you have the plaque up on the wall, the safe in the corner, and so forth. My country manager a couple of years back would have gotten one of those. And for the last 2 years, we would have been paying that fee of like $10,000 a year. Right? Not TT I'm talking about. And I'm like, buddy, why do we have this? We run through banking services. We do remittance through banks, not over the counter. We don't have an over the counter presence. So we canceled the payment after 2 years in 2023. We're not going to renew it in 2024 because we don't have a physical store to do over the counter payout.
Okay.
That was in December 2023. So then I saw CNC3 running this story. I'm like, they must know I'm here. And of course, it got shared everywhere. We have no license revoked. We did not renew this over-the-counter license because we don't have a physical presence. But to be fair to GAFIN, their regulation says if you do not renew your license, they have the right to revoke it. Colloquial, however you want to call it, law. So that's why they have that on their website. But our license to operate is still there as WePay, as a payment processor, as a remittance company. We just didn't want it to have a license or have a bill of $10,000 every year for a service that we weren't going to pay for. We agreed mutually. Mm-hmm. Hey, we're not going to renew it after 2023. But I'll tell you this. I'm on record by saying this. 1st of August, we were supposed to launch this 5-year extension with the government of Grenada. It's very funny. Just after what's the hurricane name?
Barrels? No, not Barrels.
Beryl.
No. Barrel, right there. Good, not Barrels.
Beryl,
I like Barrels.
Right? A week or two before we have our 5-year multi-million-dollar announcement that something from 2023 made it onto the news a week before. Something that has nothing to do with us providing service.
Yeah.
I'll leave it as that.
That's strange, right?
It's sus, right? But it might be sus for anybody else. But I tell you, this entrepreneur life is not for everyone. Mm. So I would say it and I would smile. Other people will say it and think that's crazy. But
okay.
Comes
so I want to combine 2 questions into one, right? And how I want to phrase this question, if you were to look, all right, so both through the lens as an operator in the space, as well as saying that, you're looking through the lens as an investor, because you're also an investor. How do you see the future of the Caribbean FinTech and digital payments landscape evolving over the next few years, and where do you see the investment opportunities there?
Right. So I'd like to go back to, how you mentioned, hey, the place in 2019 to 2020 seemed ripe and everyone and their cousin was starting a FinTech.
Right.
I can provide you some context for that because I'm from that space, right? In the FinTech space, I'm part of this ecosystem in Miami. That's the period when it had crypto money. That's the period where everybody was launching a coin, and you have people who were not investors becoming multi-millionaires overnight just by, hey, I take $1,000, I launch this meme coin, Doge, whatever, and my $1,000 is now 10 million. So now I'm an investor. I'm pumping money into a lot of projects by people who don't even know how to write a business plan, right? If you look at what happened, look at the investments when you get a second. Look at the companies FTX was invested in. Look how many fintech companies they were invested in. They had a fund, and a certain company out of Barbados, I'm going to call his name. They had all got some money, right?
I know what you're talking
It
about.
was it, right? Okay. I don't have no vodka in me or no thing in me. Why that? I feel sending it through the phone. And the last time we got on here, we had a lot of unnecessary nuggets that was placed in the. So I would say this, bro. That period had a lot of free money. So you had a lot of things that were being built that wasn't real things. You have a lot of people promising dreams based on this free money. So they're going to pitch a story and they're going to do this. They're going to fix the Forex problem. They're going to do. Well, that time has gone, as they call it in the FinTech winter, and only strong would survive. Only real solutions will survive. So I believe it's actually a good thing, right? Because just like the 2008 crash, after that happened and people was too busy not renting out their homes, now they needed the money, so Airbnb popped up and was a lifesaver for people who need the extra income. Uber popped up and was a lifesaver for people who need the extra income, who was driving to work and have 3 seats in the back that they could have added additional revenue or additional income, sorry. That's the same thing that's going to happen. You're going to now have products that has to actually provide value for it to succeed, and not just products that, oh, I have this company out XYZ. All right, how much revenue you had last year? Nobody talks about revenue.
None.
We are pre-revenue. Yeah. You remember that Silicon Valley movie? It was a series, Silicon Valley.
Yeah. It was on YouTube or something like that, right?
So there's this thing when this guy was talking about, hey, so let's document our revenue on our growth profile, and then one of the investors said, yo, we don't talk about revenue. If we talk about revenue, then there's expectations, and it's never going to be enough. What we talk about is we're at pre-revenue.
Right.
So the sky is the limit. So we could say we are pre-revenue, but we expect to be a $1 billion company in 6 years. And that's how you get investment. So that's what was happening during that free money or that crypto money. Now your products have to make money, otherwise it doesn't make sense. So for our market, I believe, we're going to struggle a bit, but the ones that do come out of it is actually going to help us as a community. So, it always happens. It's always the up and down cycle with the stock market, with economies. It always happens. After the crash, there's the ones that rise to the top.
Survival of the fittest. Okay, so if you're talking to an investor, how would you, I don't want to use the word advise, but what would you suggest they do? Where would you suggest they look?
Investors?
Yeah.
Like a Trinidadian investor?
Trinidadian, it could be an investor from the diaspora, it could be an investor from the US who's just interested in the Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where would you?
So, and I will just give you my perspective.
Sure.
Right? My perspective is always going to have a WiPay slant, as I mentioned to you. How does this investment bring me any value? But I can tell you, I was here in Trinidad and I ventured into something outside of WiPay, right? In some of the hospitality space now. And for me, those investment comes from what I think my understanding is of the market. So the same way I approach the fintech market with understanding the fintech market, excuse me, I invest into a couple companies over the last week and a half, 2 weeks when I've been here, based on what my understanding is of the hospitality market, right? The restaurant business, right? So for an investor, right, and this is the biggest thing in fintech for the last year and a half. The worst thing is to get one of these VCs because you get a VC into your company, they're not about the dream. They're about, okay, I put 10 million in. How do you scale my 10 million into 20? I don't care what the plan is. This is my plan. But if you had the plan before, why didn't you just do it with your money all the time?
Mm.
So as an investor, right, I just look at, okay, the person that I'm investing in, is he a dreamer? Is he a believer? That's one. Can he execute? Because there's a lot of dreamers, but then they can't execute. Where's the proof in his execution? So the things that I invested in that I won't mention right here,
Mm-hmm.
these guys had a dream and they executed on it. I'm like, yeah, okay. So you built this business, right? And my thing is, okay, you built a successful business, let's say in Port of Spain. For me, when I look back, if I could multiply this in San Fernando, Chagonas, in the east, then I could multiply this revenue by 4. So the investment for me is I'll give you what you're saying you need. I say, hey, I want to expand this business into 4 more cities. Would you be able to do that? Do you have the understanding or the capacity to do it? I know they can because they already did it once. But that conversation lets me know, listen, they have that appetite to do it. Then my money is just like the third thing of importance on the list. We have someone with the appetite, the know-how, and then all they need the money to execute it. So as an investor, I would say, hey, at the end of the day, there's a lot of willing people to take your money out there. But if you have the ability, or if you believe that that person has the ability to execute on the dream that they are selling, or even if they're not selling a dream, the ability to execute,
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty much what I would look at. And that's what for us, having that ability to execute. Because a business plan is great. ChatGPT can spit out an awesome business plan.
It really can.
ChatGPT could give me an awesome prospectus on a company that, they have no idea how I built it. But if I want to get $10 from you, and I give you an awesome prospectus, spit my numbers into ChatGPT, spit my business plan and, my forecast into there and say, spit me out a prospectus. That doesn't mean it's going to work. But your trust in what I've done before should be that deciding factor. And that's my 2 cents on investing.
Yeah. So you look at the person, you look at the opportunity. I mean, the opportunity has to be there, but most importantly, it has to be the person. The person has to be of good character, and it has to be somebody who you believe could do what they say they're going to do.
Well, I've shown that they could do what they say they could do. The prospectus or the opportunity opens the door. Mm-hmm. And then when you sit in the office and I ask you, how are we going to get from where we are to where you say we're going to get? And you can't clearly articulate that to me. Yeah. But if you could sit here and I'm like, oh, dang, I see it. I see how you know exactly how we're going to get from here to here. Right? My money is just as good as anybody else's. You know what? I want in. Mm-hmm. And that's the guy that I'll buy into.
Okay.
Any day.
Okay. So you also look at private investment opportunities in your own accounts. Okay. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Last 2 days were private.
Last 2 days were?
The last 2 deals was private.
Oh, nice. Okay. Lovely. All right. Final questions. Final questions. Okay. So when you think about the Web3 space, the DeFi space and everything, everything from NFTs, cryptocurrency, blockchain, tokenization, all of these things. What are your high level thoughts on that?
Just like with the internet in 1993, 1994, it had a bunch of first movers that didn't get it right. I don't know if you remember Web Caller, Netscape. There's a bunch of them that didn't get it right. But then when they figured it out, you had great companies like Amazon, Google, Yahoo, Facebook, billion-dollar companies. We were just in that 1994 period.
Okay.
We're going to have people that figure it out, companies that figure it out, and it's going to make it. So my take on it is those were the first movers. Those were the ones that got it wrong. Some of them are going to get it right, and that space is going to be just as important as the internet is today.
Yeah. And I guess, for me, and it sounds like we're similar, where I like to stick to fundamentals, right? So just like how you said, the products and services must have value. They must prove value, right? There's a time when it had all these NFTs with chipmunks and skateboards and everything for millions. But was your value? And again, people who've never invested before, so again, I don't want to call people dumb, but not smart money, right? So smart money is sophisticated investors or whatnot. And you know that most sophisticated investors are not going to invest in something that they don't understand, right? They have to understand it thoroughly. So, because they need to understand where they're going to get their return, where they're going to get their money. Oh, when this
pump and dump, those are pump and dump. That's like a lot of the schemes that they run in here with, circles and triangles or whatever you call it. You sell the dream.
That's right.
And I can tell you, the man with the suit and tie that sell the best dreams.
Is that why you're wearing a suit tonight?
I don't have a tie, bro.
Okay, so the tie.
Actually, I had to miss some people today, so I had to wear the jacket. Well, outside of that.
Okay, no props. All right.
Central people.
Did they what? All right. So as we get ready to wrap, is there anything that you want to get out to the audience today that we didn't cover this evening? You're giving you open forum, open mic, open platform. Floor is yours.
No, I think we mostly talked about, just WiPay's history. Mm-hmm. So, if I have to keep, my closing thoughts in line with what we talked about today, I would say, a lot of the value that we think we bring to the market was based on trying to understand, our people. Our new product, which is Colour, is something based on what the feedback that we got from, the people in the market. I would say to any developer or any app maker or anyone that's looking to get into space, your customers is your number one priority, even before they pay you $1. I come to my office and I tell my head of CX, tell me what's our 5 most requested fixes or problems that they have. I don't want to hear all the good stuff. The good stuff is for your management meeting and for your board report. Tell me what's the problem that we have that I need to fix. And, I look forward to seeing it. And I would say to a developer, embrace those challenges. Don't sit and think that you need to build something that's going to be perfect, because it's never going to be perfect. Take every criticism as constructive, even if it's not. Like, we sat here and he talked about, hey, what's up with Grenada? And I smiled. I smiled the first time I saw it. And, I had like something forward to me many times. You see many times on the top of a forward.
Right.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
Yeah, I think I forwarded it to you as well.
We're trending. And I'm like, I think I responded with LOL.
Right.
Like, all right, let's do it. I'm not mad at it. I just understand, listen, get better from it. All right. Understand that, sometimes we may have politics involved. Wink, wink. Right? Like it says election year. Dot your I's, cross your T's. Have that conversation up front. Right? And this is what I'm saying with understanding criticism that, you may think might be negative if you're a builder. Find the positive in it, find the constructive part of it, and then get yourself or get your product better. And, that's pretty much, along the WiPay line, because I think just as you mentioned, you always see something, always hear something. So, our energy, my energy is, I don't take none of it seriously enough that it gets me off kilter. You're going to see the same energy, good, bad, or indifferent, until I get to that point where, I can hand it off to someone else. So that's the same energy you need to have. I would just recommend that.
Love it. Podcast world, there you have it. The Evolution of Caribbean Payments with Aldwyn Wayne. Subscribe to The Value at thevalue.show/subscribe. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts. And with that, Podcast World, Aldwyn.
Respect.
Podcast World, Cabin Studios, we are out.